Hi, everyone. I am going to try to do a relatively quick talk today on inequality. So, we hear inequality talked about and complained about a lot, and we hear that inequality, and by the way, I think when we hear inequality, they're usually referring to wealth inequality, different people having different amounts of money. It goes along with how they discuss that billionaires are bad and harmful, and the rich need to be eaten, and the workers do all the work. The rich don't do anything. And so, similarly, if some people have more wealth than others, it's supposed to be harmful for those who have less wealth. Anyway, so wealth inequality, um, I want to state up front is I want to state adamantly wealth inequality that arises naturally from capitalism harms nobody. It benefits everybody. I'm not saying that the inequality per se, that thing specifically benefits people. I'm saying what gives rise to inequality is what benefits everyone. I'll explain. First, let's take a step back. Let's think about what wealth and inequality are. So, think about when the Earth was formed 5.5 billion years ago. What was on it? Nothing that we use today. It was gases and rock, and at some point, water formed, and it was raw, natural landscape. You can't do anything with it. You can't watch televisions with it. You can't wear the material as shoes unless you do work to make it such. You can't. You might be able to live in a cave, but for the most part, you can't do anything with the raw natural resources sitting there. They have to be transformed and made into a usable form. That is what we call wealth is. Wealth is not money per se. Again, pretend you just arrived on the earth 5.5 billion years ago. You've got $1 billion of cash in a chest. What are you going to do with it? Nothing. It's paper. It's worthless. Or you land on a desert island. You've got that paper. Or you've got credit cards. What are you going to do? Nothing. It gets you nothing. What wealth is stuff. It's computers, homes, medicine, sanitary equipment, airplanes, boats, uh, dog beds, phones, games, you name it. Any and everything that we use in our lives that give us comfort, that give us protection, that give us entertainment, that is what wealth is. That is what's being produced. So what happens is some people are able to produce much more of that than others. Let's take our desert island example. You and someone else wash ashore on a desert island. You've got nothing. The first thing you do is try to get food or shelter, but let's take food. You manage to somehow catch fish. You're lunging after them, or you created a spear, which by the way is a tool, the spear, but you're able to catch one fish a day. Well, let's say the other person on the island, who's also catching one fish a day, takes time and finds the materials to create a net. He makes a net such that he or she can cast the net in the ocean and suddenly come up with 10 fish a day. So he has created wealth in the form of the net. The net brings wealth in the form of fish. So he's eating 10 fish a day, you're eating one. Has he harmed you? No, he hasn't harmed you. His having more stuff that helps his life doesn't make you worse off. If anything, it'll make you better off because maybe he'll give you a fish. Or maybe with the less time he needs to spend fishing, he can make a hut for both of you to stay in. There's no way you can be harmed by his wealth. There's every way you can be benefited from it. So obviously, wealth comes from production, from making things. And people become wealthy in a capitalistic country, in a free market, I should say, in a free market, they become wealthy by producing for others. Bill Gates became wealthy by creating software that everyone needs and can use and benefits them. A company that makes tennis shoes becomes wealthy by creating shoes for everyone. If I always like to use the example of a hula hoop, a simple hula hoop. Well, somebody became wealthy by creating a hula hoop that gave someone enjoyment, such that they were willing to pay money for that hula hoop. So wealth is produced. Wealth is almost always produced in the name of, well, okay, so in the name of making money. But to make money, you have to produce what other people want and are benefited by. So people get wealthy by making things that please others, that help others. It's the ultimate form of helping people. You get wealthy by helping others, by pleasing others. So that's what free market capitalism is. So when some people get wealthier by having better ideas or working harder, creating more goods or catching more fish than others, they're still helping society. And guess what? That's the case even if someone doesn't buy any of those things. Well, I guess at some point they'd have to buy some of them from someone, but here's my point. By having people create more goods, by increasing the supply of goods in an economy, you're lowering the price of every other good. So, for example, you're on a desert island, you've got $100, and that's buying all the fish on the island. Okay, well, then someone's catching coconuts to increase the food supply. Now you've got 10 coconuts. Well, when you had $100 buying 100 fish, what was the average price of each fish? $1. $10 in spending divided by 10 goods, 10 fish, $1. Well, what happens when you add the additional 10 coconuts? Now you have 20 goods. And so the average price would drop by half, would drop to 50 cents. So now what happens when you have 1,000 goods, 1,000,000 goods? Well, the price just keeps on falling. That's what happens to prices in real terms. Prices fall. Let's forget for a moment that you're thinking now of inflation. Inflation is only when the government keeps printing more and more money at a faster rate than we increase the supply of goods. That's the only way prices rise. But in real terms, the price is still falling. It still takes fewer hours every year, every decade especially, to produce a certain amount of goods because our productivity is increasing. Our tools and machinery that we use we're having more of them and better machinery. We can create more things. So in real terms, prices always fall. But that's what's happening. You're having the same amount of money in real terms purchase more and more goods. So the more goods that are produced, when these evil billionaires come along and start a new car company like Tesla, it increases the supply of automobiles. When a new shoe company starts, it increases the supply of shoes. When you create a new good from scratch that's never existed, it still is competing for the same number of dollars that are existing. It lowers prices. So people getting wealthy and by way of producing lowers prices for everybody. That is good inequality. Um, Bad inequality, well, I'll leave that aside. What I really want to go to is The opposite of inequality, equality, can only occur by force because people are naturally unequal. They have different skills, they have different desires, they have different number of hours they want to work, they have different capabilities of creating. So we're all going to create different and different amounts of things. So there's no way we can all be equal. You're only equal in places like communist countries where everyone gets the same income, except the leaders, of course. They've all got plenty. But the average person has the same income and they can't get wealthy. They can't benefit from working harder. They're all pretty equal at a low, miserable state of standards of living. They're all equally poor. So you don't want equality. Equality results in suffering and harm. You want inequality because it hurts nobody. So that is the lesson of the day. Inequality harms no one. What causes inequality benefits everyone. Okay, please feel free to make comments and we can discuss if you would like. Take care. Bye.